Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the More Money Show comes in. If you're ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks. Hello and welcome to this episode of More Money. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and today I am excited to interview for the first time Adam and Vanessa of Be the Wellness, BEE, The Wellness. Welcome, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us, Cassie.
Yeah, we're stoked.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So I always start with this question, and I actually forgot to give you a heads up, but I don't think I'll catch you guys off guard. What is awesome right now?
It is actually amazingly sunny and beautiful outside. And, we live in Southern California, so it seems like it would be that way all the time. But we've actually had like what they call May gray. And so it's been, like a whole month of clouds and fog and cold. And it's finally starting to get sunny. And it just makes my whole world just brighten up.
That's exciting. I love it. Just brighten up. I can just see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it really does make a big difference. There's so many things that are awesome right now, but I'm immediately struck by a new line of clothing that I found.
Oh, I love it.
So there's a company called Barbell Apparel that hit me up and is like, hey, you want to start wearing our stuff for 50% off? I'm like, yeah. And so I bought some and ordered it. And it's exactly right. It fits perfectly. And with 50% off, it's super affordable.
I love it. That's awesome. And did they just reached out and said that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love that Adam's what's great right now is about clothes, because this is it rarely happens. This is like a total shift in roles here.
So fun. I love it. Awesome. Yeah. Cool. So I always ask this too, how did we, and I like to hear the stories too. How did we get connected? How did we come in contact? Yeah,
we were introduced to you through Elle, who is the host of the Primal Blueprint podcast. And Elle has been a longtime friend. We worked together over the years on different projects, and I used to actually work with her at Primal Blueprint for a few years. So we know each other through Elle's introduction, and Elle said, you have to have Cassie on your podcast. She's amazing. She's doing amazing work, and you're just going to love her. And she was right.
Yeah, it's true. And fun fact, you're actually one of the first, if not the first person on our podcast that's not directly in the health and fitness or nutrition world.
Yes.
You were kind of our first foray into what we've actually grown into now, which is just sort of a much more all-encompassing situation.
I love it. I love being the first. That's awesome.
You were a catalyst. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you mentioned the podcast and your business and kind of how it's evolved. So just give us background for people listening. What do you guys do? What makes you awesome? What's the cool stuff that you bring to this world?
Oh, let's see. Hello, let me count the ways.
Yeah.
Right? That is true with you. Yeah, for sure.
No, I'm kidding. But we're fundamentally a personal coaching and adventure travel company. So we help people kind of find their most high performing self in a lot of different ways. So whether that's a nutrition and strength and conditioning piece, or if it's more in the self-mastery and mindfulness piece, and usually it's across the board in all aspects. And then we take those folks and we take them out and we do awesome stuff. Our last adventure was a trip, a 7-day trek over the Salcantay Trail to Machu Picchu. And we prepare people for that physically, mentally, emotionally, all the things. And then we take them there and we coach them through it. And we just do some awesome things with awesome people.
That's amazing. And is it BEE, thewellness.com?
Yes.
It is.
Yes. Be the Wellness.
Because the reason I want to say that is because everyone who just heard you talk about that Machu Picchu trip should go find the video.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's really special. It's kind of one of those things, again, like the podcast, all of these things, we sort of started in one way and had sort of an initial idea of how our company would be or what it would offer. And it's really transformed into this sort of all-encompassing encompassing, way to live a badass life, essentially. So yeah, we've been kind of really thinking about what it is that we offer. And we're like, at the end of the day, we really just want people to have a badass life. So we're going to help you do that.
That is awesome. I love it.
Yes.
So
yes.
how did you guys get started? I love that you do this together. I love that you're a couple who's running their business together and has grown a business together. But I don't really know how it started. So I'd love to hear.
Well, I actually had just kind of a epiphany one day. I think we were on a hike or we were walking. I don't know. I was in a space where my mind was just kind of clear. I felt really good. And I was just, vibrating at that level in which good ideas can find you.
Yes.
And you know that level.
Mm-hmm. You do.
And I had this, all of a sudden, this idea for a blog initially, which was just Be the Wellness. The idea of the name really popped into my brain. And the idea was, the saying that popped into my brain was be the wellness you wish to see in the world. And so it was about embodying the things, whatever things they may be, that really create this optimum, amazing, beautiful existence, and a way that you can, reflect that out into the world to hopefully inspire, uplift, and enroll people in that way of being. And so I just had this sense of, I want to really embody this way of living and hopefully inspire people to do the same. And so the name kind of took on its own, it kind of actually sort of dictated the way that the brand developed, because, we had that name. And so we started the blog, and then pretty soon we started developing our pillars, and we kind of played off of the name. So it was like, our pillars were be nourished and be loving and be active and be adventurous. And then, our members in our community started calling themselves bees, and, our community, they referred to it as the hive. And so it just kind of took on this life of its own, where it really just became this entity, all of it itself. And that's it was just that initial spark. And then I think a willingness for Adam and I to just keep chasing that down.
Yeah, that's awesome. Adam, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, not too much. I think Vanessa pretty much nailed it. I mean, our individual backgrounds and what brought us to actually be able to do this business are a little bit different. But we're both fundamentally coaches, and when the genesis of this whole thing, Vanessa was still working for Primal Blueprint, running their personal coaching program and developing their Primal Luxury Retreat program, which we subsequently just spun off and ran on our own. And I was still working full time for the fire department and working as a coach and developing essentially the health and wellness screening protocols and the strength and conditioning programs for our academy and fundamentally, all of our personnel. So we had these sort of two things going on, which, on the outset looked like they were fairly separate, but in reality, they actually had a tremendous amount in common. And when we brought the two things together, we came up with fundamentally what we have now, which is this, this way, like Vanessa was saying, of accessing the best parts of people and kind of harnessing that and driving it in a cool direction, whatever that is for people. And a lot of folks, it winds up being this adventure travel piece, because it's just such an epic way to kind of bring all of these new skills and practices into play.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I love how you guys train, because it's really, it ties into like the work that I do as well. It's like, I think we change and we grow more, better, easier, however you want to say it, when we have this end point. And so having this amazing trip that you're going to be on, I can see how that brings people in better, more committed, like just wanting it more.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it really aligns with what you do and your system. I see a lot of similarities and congruence from the system that you teach and the system that we teach. And it's one of the reasons that we really wanted to start coaching with you, is because we really believe and see the power of coaching. We really, we see it in our business. We see how our clients' lives transform. And so for us to come to you is just a no-brainer, because, we see how important it is to actually have people who've gone there before us to lead the way. So thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome.
Yeah.
And I love that that just happened, because that was like my next question is, so we've been, you guys, it's almost a month at the time of this recording that you both have been in the Enchanted Circle. And the next question was, why did you make the decision? What was the reason, to join?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, Vanessa pretty much summed it up, but it's she's got a knack for that.
She does.
but to just sort of say what she said in another way, it really is this thing that we've, I've kind of used this phrase over and over, and coaches need coaches, and there's just every high performer has a coach one way or the other. Tiger Woods has a coach, and this is that he works with every single day or every week. I mean, I don't know much about golf, but I'm parroting what I heard somewhere else. But I mean, the example though is that there's going to be, you need people to point out the areas that are your blind spots when you're working through a particular topic. And this is no different, and we've had you on the podcast a couple of times and just really like the way that you communicate and the way that you think about this stuff. And it resonated with us. So it's like, all right, well, if we're going to have a coach to do this, then, we know exactly where to start.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. And I love that you highlighted, the blind spots. And you're right. Like all of the highest performing people, like they have a coach because we can't see those blind spots on our own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for us, it's just, we've obviously been able to create, manifest all those good words that mean we've done, a lot with our potential, but there's just this whole other, gear to grab, if you will, that we know is right there. And so we're really enjoying this process of actually being in the student mindset and, that growth mindset. It's really fun.
I love that. And I want to ask a question. How did you know, and I think this is different for everybody, but I'm super curious, like, how did you know when you say like, there was another gear to grab? Like, how did you know it was time? Because you guys are amazing manifestors. I mean, I loved hearing the story of how Be the Wellness came to be just now, because it's so from inspiration. It's, and I believe that's where you guys do everything from.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the most part, I think, actually, that's 100% accurate from the place of inspiration. But I think part of it sort of came to a point, and I mentioned earlier that, my other career, and we really got to this point where from a time and energy perspective, and more from an energy perspective, honestly, because we're really focused on not equating like success and time linearly. I mean, at some point, those two things definitely go together, but we're trying to make that divergent and in a positive divergence. But we definitely came up to this point where, the energy that I was putting out in my other career is so much. And so like, you just can't half-ass that job. Like you cannot do it. And so we really got to this point where it was clear that continuing to move forward and grow the business in the way that we've wanted to grow from the beginning, which is what we've done, is sort of in a non-compromising way where we're doing this our way and we're doing the things that we feel are super important. And that's who we aim to attract. I mean, that's basically been our business model, from the get-go. And in order to continue doing that at this level, so to speak, or ethic that we like firmly believe in, I need to be able to dedicate more of my time to it. And so we really got to this point where it's like, okay, what this means is I have to give up this stable 72-hour a week job, which sounds like a lot, but that I've had for 22 years, that most people would say is the best job in the world for a number of reasons. Got to give this up and then transition into this other thing, which is fundamentally a lot more fulfilling and like frankly what I want to do. But we needed something to get over that lump. You know what I mean? It's a pretty significant bump in the road. Energetically. So it was just time to do something to get around that or over it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Vanessa, did you have any? I love hearing both of you because it's such, you guys say the same thing, but I as a coach, like I've always known, I coach softball, like I could say the same thing and my assistant coach could come behind me and say it just a little bit different and somebody would get it. Right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think the thing I would add is just that, Adam and I have never honestly been like really, really pinpoint focused on money as a topic. And I think we've always, there's always been enough, and we've always kind of done what we've wanted in life, and we've always had a pretty good influx in relationship with it. But I think that there came a real reality that there was a sense of a new paradigm that we wanted to create, that by doing what we're doing now wasn't going to get created, that we did need to actually add some new skills and sort of a new way, a new framework, if you will, for this next piece of it. Because, obviously we've created what we've created, but if we want to go beyond that, there's probably going to be new ways of being, acting, thinking, and creating that we haven't done thus far naturally. So it's time to actually get some input and advice on how to create those new ways of being in the world. So I think that's, for us, it was like, okay, let's actually take the time to really, really focus on this, to really get, in the story of what we're trying to create, and get some really good tools and coaching around this, what we're trying to create next.
I love that. And I love that you said time, because I think that's where, when, you guys you're go-getters, like, just like me, and we just go full steam ahead for a lot of the time. Right. And so but then it takes that time to kind of step back and invest that time investment in getting clear and living the story and all those fun things.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, through the process, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this more, but it's just, already in this process, you're seeing where the blind spots, the blocks, the ways of being and thinking are in the way of that next piece. So it's just really exciting to already be seeing that unfold.
Awesome. Yeah, I love hearing that. So, and you're so good. Like, you just keep anticipating my next question.
I'm giving you the lead in.
You are. It's so good, because you're an amazing podcast host as well. Yeah. So what would you say, is sort of that biggest aha or difference that's happened so far?
I think for me, just recognizing the stories that are there that I didn't really even realize were there. So, there's always just, we all have our stories, we have our ways of being about money. And I think that in a lot of ways, I was kind of flippant about it. I was just kind of like, oh yeah, well, it's there and it's here. And, kind of recognizing my flippancy about it, in actually understanding where that comes from, and sort of the, uncovering the things that are actually creating that mindset around it. And so I think for me, just recognizing, some of the stories I have around even some embarrassment and shame, like wanting too much. There's like, I almost have like a split personality about it. On one hand, I have this super abundant, like, of course I deserve all of these things. And, of course I'm going to create this and it's no problem. And on the other side, there's like, I would feel weird to say, I want to be rich. Like, that would evoke a weird feeling for me. Like, I shouldn't say that, that's rude, or that's, there's all this attachment to it. So I think in discovering that, it was like, I would press the gas pedal and then the brakes, press the gas pedal and then the brakes. And that's kind of been my relationship with money, because when I'm in the flow and I'm feeling like, oh, there's no shame and there's nothing around this, then I'm creating all this abundance. But then my mind gets in the way, and then I'm like, wait, pump the brakes. I don't think I'm supposed to be allowed to feel that way. I don't think I'm supposed to be allowed to have that much, and then it's like this mind game. You're back and forth playing with this toggle switch. So for me, it's just discovering that that's there for me.
Oh, I love that. Because that's so, like, that's where it starts, right? It's so important. And we do. And even because I emphasize this because I love what you guys do. And I love that you can, not everybody can execute the retreats the way you do, right? I mean, I know so many people who wanted that as their business model, and they just have never figured out how to make it work. And you guys are this example of something that work. Like, you have created what works. And so so you didn't come in, being like, oh, I need more money. I need this. It was like, it's time to up level and create this next version of who we are. And yeah. And so what I love about that is it's still like, you have to, the first step is just like becoming aware of what are those stories, like what is playing out right now.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and for me, I'm assuming I should answer the same question.
Yes, please.
See, I'm also good at leading in.
You are.
With an awkward question. So the things that are coming up for me, it's sort of interesting because we've done, I mean, we're both Landmark Forum and Curriculum for Life graduates. You know, it's not like this, we've done a lot of introspective work, you know, and a lot of trying to understand what makes us tick at sort of the fundamental levels to understand the decisions and things that we make, you know. And through all of that, there was a few things that I missed that I've picked up so far in working with you that are kind of interesting. And I think they're tied together. So you tell me if I'm right about this. But one of the things I find that's difficult is I have a hard time getting excited around things and that are like just money related things. So for example, I mean, one of the things that we're working on is like, okay, well, what makes you excited about having money? Or if you had this money, what would you be excited about in doing this? And there's very, very few things that really come to mind. It's something that I just sort of have this kind of block with. And it's not that I don't get excited to do things. There's something else there. And so I did a little bit more digging. And I think to some degree, what it boils down to is that I developed a very, very, very strong work ethic working for my dad growing up, which is great. I mean, I learned a tremendous amount of skills, and I will work harder than almost anybody. But what I got out of that, what I learned from that relationship was that in order to get the money, you've got to do work. And so it was this very, very parallel track of money and work. And you know, that it's a time issue. Like if you want that, it's going to take this many hours to get it, kind of a thing. And I think what ends up happening is that in somewhere in my subconscious, when I think about something like, oh, that would be exciting to go do that, my subconscious is like, well, that's 14 or 140 hours out of your life to pay for that. You know what I mean? There's like this weird subconscious correlation between the two things that's showing up that just dulls my excitement about it, like before I can even get to it. And it was actually one of our exercises that we were doing that kind of brought me around to that when we were talking about taking my nephew on this world trip. It's like something that I'm super excited about doing. And it's far enough out that I don't actually have any real idea of how exactly I'm going to pay for it. You know, so like the specifics of it, my subconscious haven't been able to like grab onto and poo-poo yet. You know, so it's like, it's far enough out that I'm like, wait, that's super exciting, you know? And so the disparity there really kind of clicked for me. I'm like, well, shit, why don't I have these thoughts about things that are, you know, immediately available that, you know, that I could 100% do, and it's not that big a deal. So I don't know. So there's something there, and I'm curious to know how I'm going to get around it, but I'm committed.
I love it. Yeah. And the cool thing is that it will with the process, like, and I'll tell you this, and anyone listening too, like when we just keep going through the process, like that will just start to dissipate, which I'm excited about. Like I'm excited to watch when that dissipates, because I get it. Like I get that hard work. This is the money parallel. And I love that you've uncovered or seen that, you know, that's why I don't get excited, because I'm immediate, like it's this many hours. And so do you think that part of that is because you're I mean, obviously it comes from your dad, but do you think part of it too is you can pick up extra hours in your job, right? Like it's an option, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's just it, is it's like with the exception of our business, every opportunity that I have to make money is like a direct correlation to some amount of time and not necessarily even work. And this is probably a better way to look at it, is that it's actually time. It's like, that is my resource, you know?
Yeah.
And so like because the work piece has never been a concern. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I like to work. I work when I'm doing like my free time. I spend working on stuff because I like doing that. Yeah. But it's the time component, the time for dollars component that seems to be sticky. And you're exactly right. You know, you pick up an overtime shift here or there. And until we started our business, so for the last 18 years prior to starting our business, when we needed extra income, that was the go-to. It was like, well, okay, I'll go pick up a couple of shifts, you know, and here's the money, you know?
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to ask you too, because I know this day is going to come, and then we can, you know, come back to this interview. So what is it going to feel like the day you realize that you've spent less time, you've had more freedom, more just free time with each other, like walking on the beach, doing all the things that you love, and you realize you have more of that and more money in your bank account.
Well, I mean, that is excitement. Like, I think that's fundamentally the word, right? Like, I don't know what, I mean, there's all sorts of things I think would be associated with that. Like, like almost even a feeling of relief, because it's like, there's something that we've been striving for, like we can see it, I mean, we have shining examples in our lives. Some of our closest friends are in this, they've made it past this like time for dollars paradigm, and so we see it and we know it's possible. Yeah. And so I think like when you get there, it's nothing but like excitement for it working, and being proud of the fact that you cracked the nut and like figured out how to do this, because it's super uncommon, I mean, so many people are stuck. And I mean, stuck's not even, I don't think, a good word for it, because it sort of implies some negativity around that, and some people are totally happy doing their thing, and I, wouldn't change that for them. But for those that aren't, it can feel like you're stuck, and if you get stuck there, it's like, feels like you're missing out on something in this experience,
Yeah, definitely. How about for you, Vanessa?
Well, I mean, just kind of tacking on to that, like so Adam has officially given his notice for the fire department.
Yay!
So it's, we feel like we're right in this home stretch, and obviously there's some navigation in terms of like, how to make up that money, so to speak. It's not 100% clear yet, but we know that like in taking this big, bold step, that there's space for that now, where before there just simply wasn't space. There wasn't room to create anything new, because all of the time, like he's saying, was spoken for. And so there was no way to, create things in a new way, because it was just, everything's scheduled out. Everything's already decided. So for us, we're in this really exciting time where there's all of this possibility that wasn't there before. And, to be honest, I've spent half of our marriage and we've spent half of our relationship together apart. So it's just so exciting to finally have this opportunity to share our lives completely together. So
find out if we like each other.
Yeah. Hopefully this thing will work out still, but it's really true. And, I was just actually telling Adam last week, because, because we've spent so much time together, I've never really allowed myself to feel the loneliness of that space in our relationship, because there was really no room for it. Like, in order to feel that loneliness, it meant that I'd have to feel that every single week, half of the time of our marriage, that I would feel lonely, in the sense if I acknowledge that feeling. And so I think in the last couple of weeks, I've actually allowed myself to acknowledge the loneliness of being apart all the time. And so for me, it's just this like really beautiful honoring of the emotions that have been there, and this excitement of actually being able to know that in the very near future, I don't have to grapple with that aloneness anymore. And it's just really exciting and sweet and beautiful.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
How long have you two been married?
It'll be 15 years in October. Yeah. So when we're recording this, we are just shy about 5 months or so. Something. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. And how long have you had your business? Like, when was the spark?
So I started the blog, I want to say I started the blog about 6 years ago. And then we launched the actual online programs a little over 4 years ago. So it's in that, it was kind of in its infancy in six years ago, but about 4 years ago is when we actually took everything online and started coaching online.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so how does it feel to be doing, I feel like you guys do everything together. I mean,
we do.
But I'm sure someone listening is wondering, like, what does it feel like to do this with your significant other, to take this growth path? And I don't think this is the first time you've done it, but I would love to hear, and I know that our listeners would love to hear, a little bit about that. Like, what is that experience like?
Well, it's, I'll tell you what, it is an exercise in relationship dynamics. I mean, for there's no other way to look at it, and we got a taste of this very early on in our relationship, and everybody says, oh, never build a house together. It's like you build a house together. It's like the first cracks in your marriage are going to show up, because there's so many difficult decisions and like fundamental differences in how you think about things that are going to materialize when you try to build a house together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we built our first house together with zero issues whatsoever. In fact,
I love that.
It worked really well. Like we have a very, what's the word that I'm looking at? Complementary set of skills, between the two of us. And not only do we have a complementary set of skills, but we actually don't care much about the things that we're not good at. So, and this is where I think people run into problems is let's say we'll just continue to use the house thing. I don't have an inkling of what a good paint scheme would be for the inside of the house. Vanessa is super dialed on it. She has an idea, knows exactly what to do. It's easy for me because I'm like, dude, whatever, do your thing. I trust that your vision on this is going to be awesome. Mm-hmm. Where you run into problems is if you can't set that down. And like, I don't know what I would do, but I don't like what you're doing. And that is where I think a lot of the problems arise. And so the same kind of thing happens in the business dynamic is that if you don't create the lanes and then stay in your lanes and create, fundamental intersections where you can like check in, you're going to have problems. And I think for us, it's just come naturally, but as the business is developing and growing, we're, the complexity of the behind the scenes stuff that's going on is getting pretty intense. And so that is something that we're sort of having to, almost like systematize what comes naturally to us and really get these things delineated and say, okay, look, this is your wheelhouse. This is my wheelhouse. Now we're going to have a meeting, so we almost have gone through and created this corporate structure, even though there's only 2 people in there. You know what I mean? It's like there's 50 boxes and each one of those boxes has one of our names in it. And then we hold meetings, you know what I mean? Like almost to discuss what goes on in those boxes. But we just have to do these kind of things to sort of compartmentalize some of the decision making, or else you end up not getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. So like on the business side, that I think is a huge piece. And then on like the relationship side, it has opened up a level of communication and ability for us to really like separate these aspects of our lives to where we can have a business disagreement, but it doesn't affect our relationship, right. And we can have a relationship disagreement that doesn't affect our business. And I think having to switch back and forth through those things has helped us sort of get over whatever the thing is, so if let's say we have a spat about something on our relationship side, but then we're like, okay, well, we got a podcast in 5 minutes. Right. So get it together. And so it's made it really easy for us to practice switching back and forth.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, honestly, so much of it is just communication. And I think that this is really where Adam and I have been lucky in the sense that we both understand a lot of times whatever is at the helm, whatever the issue is, isn't always necessarily the actual issue. I think sometimes it's like you can have a spat over something, you can have a disagreement, but if you zoom out, you can realize that, actually what's going on with me is I'm worried about this over here. And so I'm projecting that worry into this situation. And I think we are lucky in the sense that we have that self-awareness. And again, kind of going back to what Adam said, we've done a lot of work on ourselves, on our awareness and kind of our mastery of selves to know and to be able to recognize like, oh, you know what, I'm dragging something else into this situation that doesn't belong here. Let me separate it back out and let's really get down to what's here. And so I think that that's really the thing that we try to get our clients and we try to get people to understand in life in general is like to really get clear on what's actually there for you, what's actually occurring in that moment instead of dragging a bunch of past into your current moment.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts as we wrap up for today about this journey, where you guys are at, what you're excited about?
I think honestly, just for us, it's just really exciting to have a plan. And I think, this again, just getting back to loving the idea of coaching, like just creating new systems and learning new systems that are for the mastery of your life is such an exciting and powerful step to take. And, for any listeners out there that are considering it, whatever stage you're in or whatever thing that you're struggling with, it's just so important to actually step into the learning process and step into actually being available for transformation. And that's what we're really excited about, is this idea that we have actually stepped into a commitment to transforming our reality around our finances and our story of abundance.
I love it.
Adam?
So hard. I'm gonna from here on out. I'm gonna go first. Well, I think I just would really encourage people to take the leap. And at the end of the day, it often comes down to a feeling of, well, I can either do this or I can do that. And and going and seeking. I guess I would just encourage folks to always make that investment in yourself. If it comes down to the difference between learning and getting some coaching around some aspect of your business, even if you don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, something that's investing back in your knowledge and understanding of how to build who you are and how you operate within whatever your space is, invest in that over hiring a marketing company. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a point where a marketing company is important, right? But there's it almost always seems like it comes down to one of these decisions. I could do this or I could do that. And my advice is to always invest in yourself and do the thing that feels like you're going to have the most self-defining power afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I'll just add one little thing to that, and that is the trust piece. Again, kind of going back to the story of having that initial spark about Be the Wellness, things show up at those perfect times, and these seeds start to incubate at a perfect time for you, and to actually allow yourself to trust that a person, an idea, a scenario has come into your life at a certain point is such a powerful play to make in your life. And so, allow yourself to trust the divinity or the gifts or the blessings that are presented to you, and don't push them away, embrace them.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I will say to anyone, if that inspiration hit when you heard us talking about Machu Picchu or adventure travel, and that thing is in, just like in your brain, like, oh, that's what I've always wanted to do. That sounds really cool. Like, go to Be the Wellness, BEE, thewellness.com, and check it out, because that's that could be your important investment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very transformative, and we go all over the world. So this year we've done Peru, we're doing Africa in a few months, we're going to New Zealand next year, we do Costa Rica pretty much every year. So we're always changing locations. And so if you are, if you have an adventurous spirit or a budding adventurous spirit, we really recommend you check it out. It's really powerful stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Adam and Vanessa. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Make sure to catch Adam and Vanessa's next interview next week, and have a fabulous rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us on The More Money Show. To learn how to attract more money into your life, go to your favorite book retailer and order Cassie's book, Manifest $10,000.